Hi folks, Jake von Slatt here. Today I want to take you through my latest project, my latest completed project. This has actually been in the works for 5 or 6 years now. And this is probably the last steampunk project that I'm going to do. That's not to say that future projects won't be in a steampunk aesthetic, but this is probably the last time I take a particular item and try to make it steampunk. I started with the steampunk keyboard, and I did the guitar and several computer monitors. And I kind of feel like, for me at least, this steampunking conventional objects has sort of played out. So I'm not quite sure what the new direction is going to be. The aesthetic certainly is going to be similar, and I suspect the same people that like my steampunk projects will like my future projects. But this is the last steampunk project or steampunk mod that I think I'm going to be doing. So what is this? This is a kit car that I purchased on eBay. Like I said, about 5 or 6 years ago. It's a 1971 VW Beetle chassis, and then it has this fiberglass kit car body. These were popular in the 70s. They were advertised at the back of Smithsonian Magazine and Popular Science, and people would buy these kits and install them on VW chassis and make these kind of interesting cars. Now, this one originally was white with brown fenders, fairly unadorned. When it came to me, it barely ran, had some issues with fender interference on the wheels, and an electrical system that was completely non-functional. So I have painted it, decorated it, and gone through the mechanicals and gotten it running again, and redid the electrical, so everything is fully functional. It's got a black lacquer finish. The underlying fiberglass was not in that great shape, and I was never looking to make a concours d'elegance type show car. I wanted something that I would use, that I didn't have to spend a whole lot of time maintaining. So, like I said, this is a spray lacquer finish. First time I ever painted a car. I think I've avoided most of the orange peel issues. This has never been rubbed out, so it could probably be improved with a little elbow grease. But I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. And like I said, the underlying fiberglass was not in the best condition. There are cracks and such in the gel coat that show through the paint. This gold filigree. This is an old hot rodder's technique, and this was rather fun to do. I did this on the fender and on the radiator. Basically, you mask off an area and then you tape lace over it, and you shoot the gold paint through the lace, and then remove the masking and clear coat the whole thing. And in these cases, I used pinstriping tape to finish the edges. I'm pleased with the way those came out. Some of the other things I've done, the horns that came with the car were they were like marine horns. They were boat horns, I think, that had a white plastic bell on the end, and aesthetically they weren't very pleasing. And I happened to have a couple of broken trumpets that my sister gave me a few years ago, so I've modified the horns to use the musical instruments. Originally, the rear view mirrors were mounted on top of the fenders, and they were kind of useless up there. Actually, I think in the very beginning there were turn signals on top of the fenders. They weren't functional, and I moved the rear view mirrors up to the tops of the fenders. Some old British cars have mirrors on the fenders like that, and they were not very useful, so I moved them back to the windshield, where they were much more serviceable as rear view mirrors. And then I needed a pair of things for the fenders. So I went on eBay and I started searching for brass pair, and found a number of different things. But when I came across these elephants, I knew these would be just the right thing for the fenders of this car. Mounting the elephants to the fender looked to be a little bit difficult, so I modeled these base plates in beeswax and then cast them in brass, and they provide a nice curved surface on the bottom, and then places for the elephant feet to screw in on the top, and they make a nice sturdy attachment to the fender. Some of the other things you'll see on this car, these coach lamps on the side. In fact, you can see the construction of this first coach lamp on the first episode of Make Television, I think it is, and I'll link that down in the comments, where you can I talk about the design process of building this from a pair of brass goblets and other parts that I found in the trash. But right now, why don't we take it for a ride, and then I'll take you through some of the other features of the car, and we'll have a look at the mechanicals. So let's go for a drive. This is kind of interesting. As you can see right now, the windshield is folded flat against the hood. The windshield can be flipped up or down as you please. If you flip the windshield down, you will need goggles to drive this, especially on the highway. I've had it up to about 75 on the highway with the windshield down, and it's thrilling. Right now I'm going to put the windshield up for this drive. These hand wheels are what attach the mirrors to the sides of the windshield and also lock the windshield in place. And these I milled on my CNC milling machine. It was one of the first more complex things that I did on the CNC milling machine, and one of the first things I did in the software package CAMBAM, which I highly recommend if you're looking for a inexpensive 2.5D CAD and CNC program. It does have fully functional windshield wipers. Okay, let's go for a ride.
I dream of cogs, I dream of springs. Newton's laws are circling, swirling till my head won't clear, till I machine, I engineer. There's a current in my brain, sparking genius, I dream, yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got hands, I've got tools, I've got plans, give me some room, there's science to do. I've got brains, don't need no rules, we'll play our games, give me some room, there's science to do. Hide my talent.
Taking a look at the dashboard, all of the gauges are fully functional, including the cylinder head temperature. And I'll talk a little bit about cooling in this car in a couple of minutes. Headlights, windshield washer or windshield wipers. We've got fuel gauge. It indicates empty when it's empty, but it indicates about 3/4 when the tank is filled, because it's a custom tank and the stock sender has been adjusted as best it can. Ammeter charging. This is a generator. It's a 1971, so it has a generator, not an alternator. Voltage meter. You can see the variations in the voltage when I rev the engine. That's typical of old Volkswagens. And oil pressure. And the engine is fully warmed up, and it's holding between 15 and 30 psi. This came out of a 77 Scirocco. I have no reason to think that it's not accurate, but you know, it's ancient and not for this car originally. You know, but there is oil pressure. And a quartz clock also from the same Scirocco. Actually, I think the volt gauge was also from that car. Let's see. Oh, we've got a Sony radio, Explode brand or model. I think this is like 4 times 25 watts, something like that, maybe 4 times 15 watts. With these Kenwood speakers, it's actually quite reasonable. There's 2 speakers in the back behind the driver, and then 2 additional speakers underneath the dashboard up front. The carpeting is a really nice wool carpeting, an area rug that I cut up to fit inside the car. The seat upholstery, these are the foam and seat covering from a Pontiac Silhouette minivan. Let me get up here. And these are over the original Gazelle seat shells. This car, this kit was sold as a Mercedes Gazelle. It's a replica. It's supposed to look like a 1929 Mercedes SSK or SKK. I'm not quite sure. It doesn't really, but that's what it's supposed to look like. Continuing around the back, for taillights, these are Model A reproduction taillights, which I got on Amazon, I think, and I think they're just right for these fenders. They're meant to be mounted on fenders, and they hold the light at the right height and at the right angle. These, unfortunately, are not Department of Transportation approved, so I was a little leery of using them as the only brake lights. So I installed these LED truck brake lights in the back skirt. So we actually have LED side marker lights, LED brake lights in the back, and these incandescent Model A reproduction taillights. Now, these cars had a problem with overheating. Very often when they were built, whoever built it would not put in the skirt that's supposed to close off the top of the engine from the bottom of the engine, and you would get the hot air coming out of the bottom of the air-cooled engine and recirculating into the air intake of the fan. This car had that same problem, and it would overheat quite a lot. So what I did to fix that is I'm going to go around the other side. I think you'll be able to see it a little better. I fabricated a duct out of 16 gauge steel, and then there's a rubber gasket, and that goes up against the air intake for the cooling fan on this VW Beetle engine. This is a stock 1600cc dual port 60 horsepower VW Beetle engine, the engine that came in the 1971 chassis. And this is a fairly fresh engine. It has the pistons and cylinders only have perhaps 1,000 miles on them. The carburetor is probably the biggest problem. It's got some corrosion. It probably needs to either be rebuilt or replaced. New carburetors for this car are about $70 each, so I think I'd go the new carburetor. When I got it, it had a Bosch 009 distributor in it, and those are notorious for drivability issues, so I've replaced it with a Pertronix electronic points and this Bosch 034 vacuum advance distributor, and that works quite well. The car drives quite nicely. There is a little bit of hesitation on acceleration, and that's a issue with the carburetor. But it's really not bad at all. So what I did, I built this partition, that intake duct, and then I added these vents on the outside. So cool air is drawn into the vents, into this area, into the duct, into the engine, and then is exhaust out the bottom of the engine. And since the back part of the engine compartment is separated, there's no recirculation of air. You can drive this all day on the highway and it will not overheat. The exhaust system is a set of headers and then a custom muffler tucked under the fender. And the combination of the headers and the muffler, it makes it sound like a it doesn't have that phlegm sound that old Volkswagen engines often do. It's a much more reasonable, sporty sounding. And I've wrapped the back of the exhaust with fiberglass insulation tape because it sticks out a little bit, and I didn't want to accidentally burn an ankle when working behind the car. It's got a full roof, and you can see a picture of the roof up, and here is a shot with the side curtains in place. The car is actually quite drivable in the rain. The main issue is getting in and out of it, because you have to unsnap all of these snaps and flip the curtain up and then stick your hand out through the opening to snap it back up again. But I have driven it in the rain, and it works fine, and you stay reasonably dry. As I've mentioned, this is a Volkswagen Beetle chassis. You can see the standard torsion bar suspension. Now, there was a problem endemic to these kit cars, and that's when you put a fiberglass body on a car and reduce the weight as much as they did with this design, it kind of messes up the suspension. And if you look closely at the tire, you'll see that there's much more tire wear here than there is on this side, and the other side is exactly the same. That's because these tires toe in a little bit at the bottom. What is that? That's not camber, that's oh, it is camber, yes. So the camber is off because this suspension is unweighted, and like I said, this is a problem that's endemic with these cars, and there are some things that can be done, but I have never addressed these suspension issues that cause this tire wear problem. It steers reasonably well. The suspension is a little bit stiff, so I run the tires at 15 psi, and that gives me some extra cushion, and there's so little weight on the car that at 15 psi the tires really don't deform any more than normal. In fact, the way I determined that 15 psi was the right pressure was I just inflated the tires until they, had the standard radial bulge at the bottom cars with full pressurized tires, and running them at 15 psi makes the ride a lot more comfortable. There's a trunk up front, and this is where the side curtains are typically stored. There's enough room for a small amount of baggage in here, but this car does not have a lot of cargo space. And you can see the back of the two Kenwood speakers there. And here's the original plaque. Now, this car was made by the Tiffany Motor Cars, and there were, I think, 3 entities that made similar cars. There was Tiffany Motor Cars, Fiberfab, and CMC, and I don't remember what the CMC stands for. This particular one, if you've looked at other Gazelles on eBay, you'll notice they all have doors. This is one of the earliest body types, and it did not have the doors on the side. Now, I kind of think that makes it stiffer. Not that this is a particularly stiff car. When you put a fiberglass body on a VW floor pan, you do get a vehicle that's kind of wiggly over bumps. But I think perhaps this is maybe a little stiffer than the later ones, and I like the look of it better. The later cars had a back seat stuffed in here instead of the package tray, and a little hatch on the back, and they had some of these other features that I feel like were a little bit inelegant. So I'm pleased to have found one of these older versions of the Mercedes Gazelle. So this is the Steampunk Roadster, and I'm not sure when you're watching this, but as I post this car is for sale, and you should find links in the comments or on the webpage that took you here. And if you are interested, and a Massachusetts resident, Massachusetts will not let me transfer these plates to somebody else, but I will do what I can to return them and let you know when that vanity plate becomes free again so that you can claim it. No guarantees. I don't know if that will work or not, but if you want to keep this plate with this car, it's really the only way to do it in Massachusetts. That's all for now. This is Jake von Slatt. See you next time.